Today, we will break down how the developers at Zoink crafts that powerful stop-motion vibe without actually shooting in stop motion. We will explore how the aesthetic stays crystal clear even when the screen explodes with die, cards, or spawning of board game arenas. The trick is that they built a look that screams homemade. Clay stitches, wrapped silhouettes, then meticulously tune the animation timing, shape language, staging, and scale so you never lose the track of what matters in motion. The result is a game that feels both illustrated and sculpted, yet reads instantly during combat and fast-paced traversal. When people say Lost in Random looks Burtonous, they notice a distinct visual heritage. The game is filled with long spiderly limbs, exaggerated silhouettes, and a sense of dark whimsy, a fairy tale logic where grotesque can be tender. Critics frequently point out its clay-like gothic vibe, so it's clear that the game knows exactly what visual tradition it's tapping into. The game's influence doesn't stop at Burton. The development team at Zoink has cited classic storybooks and fairy tales from authors like Brothers Grimm and Hans Christian Andersen as major inspirations. You can also see nods to episodic fables of Over the Garden Wall, where each of the six realms represents its own dark parable with a unique local problem to solve. Even the Queen's Mask carries a touch of Studio Ghibli, specifically Miyazaki's No Face from Spirited Away. It's a stylized icon that signals both immense power and profound alienation with a single haunting glance. This deep well of inspiration matters for readability because fairy tales speak in bold shapes and powerful archetypes. When you translate those languages into 3D game, the silhouette of a character and environment do the narrative lifting, telling you both characters' function or a location's mood long before you hear a word about those dialogues. You can see the seam lines on a character's clothing and the sculpt imperfect edges on buildings, all designed to catch the light as if they were actual physical maquettes. Reviewers often describe the game's look as warped, stop motion like a feast to behold. Behind the curtains, the team at Zoink has spoken about the process of chasing snappiness of stop motion animation in Unity engine. They experimented extensively with field of the frames, ultimately setting on techniques that honor the aesthetic without harming the game's responsiveness. This involved using cinematic framing, adding extra fluff lighting in cutscenes, and maintaining rigorous concept to 3D pipeline to ensure handmade quality was never lost. The world of Random is composed of 6 distinct cities, from humble Onecroft to opulent Sixtopia, and each realm has its own unique color palette, architectural silhouette, and visual metaphors. The variety isn't just for lore, it functions as a form of user experience for the eyes. You always know where you are, and the location shapes grammar, tells you how you feel long before the plot does. In Onecroft and chaotic Two Town, you see lopsided homes and whimsical carnival signage, which telegraph a sense of fun that turned into unstable. The theme of duality in Two Town is written on the faces of its inhabitants, and the very props that litter in the streets, long before the story explains the Two Town's strange curse. As you travel to Freedom and Forberg, the visual language shifts. The architecture becomes defined as militarized edges, industrial clutter, and hardened silhouettes that made triangles, spikes, and scuffles. This immediately suggests that the world is of danger, conflict, and rigid hierarchy. Finally, in Five Topies and Queen's Domain Sixtopia, the dreams becomes cruddle, the polish of the world becomes uncanny and hollow, and the masks evolve from decoration to dominant, oppressive icons. There is a fascinating analysis of Lost in Ramble's level design that breaks down its readability into 3 core components: staging, shape, language, and scale. The essence of this analysis is that the game uses distinct shapes, circles, triangles, squares, strong perspective lines, and exaggerated proportions to cue the danger and guide the player's attention. In terms of staging, background and design to lean, frame, and funnel your view towards the point of interest. Doors, bridges, even the crooked lampposts subtly angle you towards the objective. During combat, the board game arenas are braced by rails and props that function like wings of the theater stage, keeping the action contained and focused. The game's shape language is equally deliberate. Triangle and sharp, spiky forms almost universally scream hazard, while rounder, softer shapes are usually for safe zones and friendly NPCs. The silhouette of enemies are intentionally designed with more angular accents, making them read as sharp and dangerous at a single glance. Scale is used to amplify the mood without sacrificing clarity. Oversized props, towering architecture dwarf the protagonist, even constantly reinforcing the theme of small child in a big scary world. However, the layout and encounter spaces always preserve the running lanes and visual landmarks, ensuring you never feel lost. This is how visually busy and highly stylized world remains crisp and reliable, even at 60 actions per minute. In Lost and Random, combat literally unfolds on dynamic board game arenas, which means the environment itself doubles as user interface. The tiles, rails, and props aren't just pretty scenery, they are functional elements that tell you where to stand, where to move, and how the space will transform after you roll your companion dicey. This is more apparent during dice time. When you roll dicey, time slows to a crawl, and the world transforms into a strategic plan. The handmade board aesthetic turns into a chaotic battle into a clear tabletop diagram that you can parse in a heartbeat. The game's card play mechanics are similarly designed for legibility. The VFX for deck building are theatrical but clean, with summon cycles, cost peeps, and lane blocking props that read as chunky, toy-like objects. This toy box language smartly avoids clutter that comes from more photorealistic effects. The arena changes in discrete, chunky beats, making it feel as if you're moving pieces between animation frame, reinforcing that stop-motion cadence. The character designs in Lost in Random are built for instant recognition. The protagonist, Even, and her sister Odd are small, determined silhouettes standing against the world of towering, twisted adults. The citizens of various realms are often wary and distorted, with exaggerated headgear and unsettling facial geometry that makes them immediately comic or menacing. Dicey, the sentient die, is a masterclass on readable charm. He is composed of a handful of big, small shapes and animated with snappy, expressive poses that cut through any background noise. The development team has spoken about how they deliberately voiced and posed Dicey to give him a puppet-like presence, making him feel both like a tool and a true partner on your journey. The result of this careful design is that even in a crowd of loud and eccentric characters, your allies and your threats remain perceivable, even from the corner of your eye. This is the prime example of aesthetic serving function. Zoink uses lighting as a theater director. The game layers what developers call extra fluff lighting in cutscenes and frames. It shows with cinematic eye. Think of a miniature set for maximum contrast, with bright rim lights curving out the silhouettes and carefully constructed composition that guide the viewer's gaze. In gameplay, the same theatrical rules persist, albeit light from to ensure action remains readable. It's a stage, not a diorama. High contrast lighting is used to make interactable objects pop, and the depth cues like fog, vignettes, and volumetric light help separate visual planes, so the busy sets don't flatten into incomprehensible mess during fast movement. The lesson from the Lost in Random isn't simply make it look like Tim Burton. The real takeaway is to pick a tangible story for your world and then teach the player's eye how to speak the visual language. The game doesn't just wear the style like a costume, it breaks that style into a very mechanic of how you perceive the space, time, and danger. This is the crucial difference between dedication and decoration. When people say Lost in Random looks like a stop-motion movie, they are really reacting to masterful stack of design decisions all point the eye to the same place at the same time for the same reason. Understand how, feel forever. And with that, Hollow Dwellers, this is Jester's Hollow signing off from this short thought.